When the heart stops and the brain goes quiet, what really happens next? Science says death is the end, the shutdown of biological function. But millions of people around the world have experienced something that challenges that finality. A moment that feels like stepping out of their own body, traveling through light, encountering beings, seeing loved ones long gone, before being pulled back into the flesh. They're called near-death experiences, or NDEs. And whether you believe them or not, their consistency across cultures, religions, and ages is both staggering and deeply unsettling. Let's start with the clinical facts. When your heart stops, blood stops flowing to the brain. Within 20 seconds, the brain's electrical activity flatlines. Consciousness, by all modern standards, should cease. But in NDEs, people report being more conscious than ever. They see the room. They hear the doctors. They describe events they shouldn't be able to perceive. Some describe tunnels of light. Others describe entering vast fields of peace. Some see their life flash before them, not like a movie, but like living it all over again simultaneously. And these experiences aren't just poetic tales. Doctors, nurses, and researchers have verified that patients who were clinically dead described exact details of conversations, surgical tools, or people in adjacent rooms, despite no measurable brain activity. But here's what's most shocking. People who return from these states often change. Dramatically, their fear of death disappears. Their sense of purpose sharpens. Many leave careers, rebuild relationships, and say they now know something they can't prove, but can't deny. So the question arises, is this all just a final burst of brain activity? A dream-like hallucination as the body dies? Or is it something more? Something that science hasn't been able to touch? Let's go deeper. For centuries, the tunnel of light has haunted the stories of the nearly dead. I was floating through a tunnel. It was so bright, but it didn't hurt my eyes. There was a presence, loving, beyond words. These aren't lines from fantasy novels. They're from people of all ages, from all over the world, who stopped breathing and came back with this memory burned into their minds. One woman in Germany, clinically dead for 12 minutes after a car crash, described the tunnel as a passage made of thoughts, where time didn't exist and communication wasn't verbal, but emotional. A man in India who drowned as a child reported rising above his body, being guided by glowing figures, and being told, "It's not your time yet." These reports, found in Africa, Japan, America, Brazil, all share eerie similarities. Even children as young as 3 years old have independently described tunnels, light, and loving presences. The tunnel, the light, the beings. Skeptics argue these are brain chemistry responses, DMT release, a last gasp of neurons misfiring. But scientists who've studied this for decades, like cardiologist Dr. Pim van Lommel, have found that NDEs can't be fully explained by current medical knowledge. Why? Because people have lucid, structured experiences while their EEG is flat. And more hauntingly, these experiences change people. One of the most consistent and unnerving aspects of NDEs is the life review. Not just a highlight reel, not just memories, but a full, immersive reliving of everything you've ever done, through the eyes of those you affected. People describe this moment as deeply emotional. Some feel overwhelming regret. Others feel peace. But all describe a sense of clarity, an understanding of how their actions rippled outward, how love and cruelty left permanent marks. There is no judge, no God on a throne, just you and the truth you cannot escape. One woman said she felt the pain she caused her mother in every cruel word she ever said. Another man said he relived the joy he gave to a stranger he once helped, and that moment echoed with infinite meaning. Some who return say they were given a choice, to stay or return. Others say they were told there was more for them to do. But all agree the life review stripped them of ego. It forced them to see beyond ambition, pride, or self-justification. It showed them who they really were. This, more than anything, transforms how people live after the experience. What's on the other side? The answers are as varied as the people who've crossed over. But strangely, the patterns remain. Many describe a place not bound by time, a space of peace, overwhelming love, an indescribable beauty. Some call it heaven. Others say it defies religion. One man said he walked through a library of eternal knowledge. Another floated in a sea of stars and felt the universe breathe. A child described a giant garden where flowers sang. And many meet others, family members who died long ago, or strangers they later identify as ancestors. Some meet beings they can't explain, beings of light, warmth, and infinite wisdom. But here's the twist: not all experiences are blissful. A small percentage report terrifying visions, voids, torment, disconnection, not as punishment, but as a reflection of their inner state. These so-called negative NDEs suggest that the after-death state might mirror your mind, not judge your soul. Still, most NDers return feeling that the other side is home, that life on earth was just a chapter, that death is not an end, but a return. So what does science say? Can we prove any of this? Some scientists argue NDEs are the result of oxygen deprivation, neurotransmitter floods, or REM intrusion, the brain simulating visions as it shuts down. But if that were true, why do blind people describe detailed visual NDEs? Why do atheists experience the same tunnel, light, and beings as the devout? Why are these experiences so life-altering? In 2014, the AWARE study, a landmark investigation into cardiac arrest survivors, found verifiable consciousness during flat EEG activity. One man accurately described events in the room for several minutes, even though he was technically dead. This doesn't prove an afterlife, but it challenges the idea that consciousness is just a byproduct of the brain. Could consciousness exist outside the body? Are we tapping into a universal field at the edge of death? We don't have answers, but we now have enough questions to say, death might be far more mysterious than we've been told. So, what if they're right? What if death is not a wall, but a door? What if our actions echo beyond this life? What would change in your life today if you knew tomorrow wasn't the end? People who've returned from NDEs don't just tell wild stories. They live differently, they fear less, they love more, they pursue meaning, because something they touched or saw whispered a truth deeper than science, that we are more than matter, that life has purpose, that consciousness does not die when the heart stops. And maybe the greatest mystery is not what happens after death, but why we ever feared it at all. If this story moved you, inspired you, or challenged your beliefs, like this video, subscribe to Empire Mindset, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Comment below. Do you think death is the end, or just the beginning? Because sometimes the most powerful truths live on the other side of silence.